I have been so excited to make this video. I dug through the archives of my Google Photos and of my Strava, and I have found the most significant running events that I have done in the past years. So I don't know how long this is going to take, but the first ever running event that I did was the Hanmer Springs Half Marathon. And I remember it was my friend that convinced me to do this. A half marathon at that time felt wild. That was in 2014 and I was 21. So I guess kind of old, but that's when I first got into running. And my first ever half marathon, I did it in an hour 46. I know, and that was hilly too. I remember we ran through a stream, my shoes got wet. It took me an hour 46, so it was a 4:59 per kilometer pace, and I loved it.
I'm taking a video because I thought it would be good to document you in your element. Look at those legs.
Look at this number.
Damn, shouty.
Number.
7340.
Sorry, that was in May 2014. Then in June, I did the Christchurch Marathon, my first ever marathon. And this is kind of all a blur, honestly. This is a few years ago, but I remember it was freezing cold. I did it in 3 hours 41, which was a 5:09 kilometer pace. Annoyingly, I don't have any photos of that. I don't have any footage of me completing that, but I have the Strava evidence. I remember it perfectly well, obviously being my first marathon, and not too slow either, not too shabby. In 2014, I did my first big OE. So after that Christchurch Marathon, I think it was like July, August kind of time, I set off to Europe. And so my next marathon was the Bucharest Marathon in Romania. This was the 5th of October. And I remember feeling like crap for that one. I did that one in 4 hours, 18 minutes. And I think I ate something dodgy the day before. So the pace was 6:02 kilometer pace, which still isn't bad, I know, but I definitely had to walk a decent chunk of that. And obviously traveling and stuff, I don't think I trained. I had obviously done the Christchurch Marathon 4 months before that. So not my best, but still a cool experience. Then the marathons just keep coming. So I was obviously doing my OE in Europe, and so my next one was the Athens Marathon, and that is something I knew I wanted to do. Athens in Greece, obviously, and that's where marathons were first invented. The story is that there's a town called Marathon, and way back there was some kind of war or something, and Marathon is a coastal town, so some guy saw the warships coming along and he ran all the way from Marathon to Athens to let the city know, and it was about 42 kilometers. So that's where marathons came from, and I have run the Athens Marathon. That took me 4 hours and 3 minutes, which is a 5:42 kilometer pace. That's pretty epic that I did that. I remember it ended in a big ancient stadium, which is cool. The marathons continue. So the Bucharest one was October, the Athens one was November, and then in December I found myself in Thailand. What do you do in Thailand? You run a marathon. So all the way up north in a city called Chiang Mai, I did another marathon, and that one took me 3 hours and 48 minutes, and it was a 5:31 kilometer pace. So clearly I had the bug. I actually don't know how I did 3 marathons 3 months in a row when I was traveling, probably not eating properly, probably not sleeping properly, but you're young. I was 21. Oh no, I would have turned 22 actually by the time I did the Chiang Mai marathon. So I came home back to New Zealand, and then the following year, 2015, in May, I did the Christchurch Marathon again. That time, not as quick as my first time. It was 3 hours 58 at a 5:17 kilometer pace. There was nothing too memorable about that one. I don't even remember it being cold. Oh, I do remember I did 45 kilometers. Yes, that's right. So there was just this stupid point where you had to do this little 3-kilometer loop, and there were people directing you. And so if you'd already done the loop, you were meant to go the other way. So clearly I'd done the loop, and then I got back to that spot, and then I think I did it again. And I remember, like, much later in the race, I think I looked down at my watch and it said I had done 35, but then the little mileage things said 32, and at that point I really went in the pain cave. Like, I had this realization that I was going to be running more than a marathon, more than 42, and oof, it was hard to get out of that, but I was like, you know what, just keep going, just finish it. But that was a tough end to that marathon. So that was the Christchurch Marathon in May 2015. And then I had a bit of a break, and it wasn't until November 2015 when I ran the Queenstown Marathon. And that's probably one of my favorite marathons ever. It wasn't super fast. It was 3 hours 44, a 5:18 kilometer pace. It was just so beautiful. It was a little bit hilly, but it was on a lot of trail, so it was really nice on your knees. And I think out of all the ones that I've done, you know, I've done one in Romania, I've done one in Greece, I've done one in Thailand. Queenstown Marathon in New Zealand, way down South Island, was my favorite at this stage. Then I'm not really talking about half marathons, sorry. I've done a lot, but I am going to mention this half marathon because it was in Tauranga. It was quite a while later. So the Queenstown Marathon I did in 2015, and then I did this Tauranga one in 2019. I guess life just got in the way. So it wasn't until 2019 where I did another half, and maybe that's when I was starting to get back into running. And then boom, I had back surgery. I herniated a disc in my lower back. It was on a hiking trip. I'm very outdoorsy. I also hike a lot. I slipped down, I landed on my tailbone, and I popped out a disc, and that was a painful 6 months until I finally got surgery. You know, they try everything before they operate on you. So they really put a spanner in the works. So I had that back surgery. It wasn't until 2022 now that I did another half marathon. And again, like I said, I'm not really mentioning half marathons, but this is significant because that's the first event I did after my back surgery. And I didn't think I would run again. I really didn't. I was quite sad because I thought that my running days were over, but clearly I built up that strength and I built up my fitness to the point where I felt confident enough to do a half marathon. I don't have the times written down, but I must have caught the bug back again real hard. I do remember I was going to the gym. I joined a new gym and I was working so hard on my core and so hard on my strength, and I actually got a running coach. I decided I wanted to do a marathon again and that I needed some help. So I got a running coach and I signed up for an event called the Taniwha, which is a trail marathon. It's 45 kilometers or 44 kilometers. And so I did that in November in 2022. And I was actually the first female. How crazy is that? The first female for this event. I did it in 4 hours 23 minutes, and that just gave me such a high. And that was the first trail event that I had done. The elevation, I think, is about 1,000 meters overall, and that was what set my ultra stuff going, because the vibe is so different at a trail event. And I think because I was the first female, I was like, holy shit, maybe this is what I'm good at. Like, I just feel light as a feather when I'm running up a hill. So that was November 22. And then in May 2023, I did another marathon. I did the Rotorua Marathon. I did that in 3 hours 23 minutes. So this is where my running game is really upping at this stage. That's a 4:48 per kilometer pace, I think. I don't know if these paces I've written down are right, but Rotorua Marathon, that became my PB, 3 hours 23. That's pretty damn good. That was in May 2023. So there's 4 more events still to go. In August 2023, I did the Taupo Marathon, even faster. So that was 3 hours 16. That is by far my marathon PB. I don't know if I could ever do that again. I would love to. Clearly I'm capable. I remember training really hard for that, doing a lot of speed work, so much time at the track, so many tempo runs. I still had a coach at this point as well, so it is important to note that I did have a lot of help and guidance. But really what this was all building up for is my first ultra, and I did have this booked a long time in advance. I really knew that I wanted to do it. It was a 70-kilometer ultra in Taupo as well. So I did the Taupo Marathon in August, and then this Taupo 70-kilometer was in October, and I was the second female by like 2 minutes, which is so freaking painful. If I knew, I didn't even know that I was doing that well. I honestly did not know that I was doing that well. If I knew that I was 2 minutes behind the first female, I would have boosted and I would have beat her. But I did that in 7 hours and 1 minute. So basically 6-minute K the whole entire way. And that was like trails, full hills, up big climbs, down, like killing your knees. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And just coming second female, third overall. I didn't even say that. There was a dude, a chick, and then me. Like, what? That's why I wanted to do more ultras. That was October, and then this was dumb. In November, so I'd just done 70 kilometers in October. In November 2023, I then did the Taniwha again. I think I was just on this runner's high and I wanted to win again. It's 44 kilometers. I did it in 4 hours and 5 seconds, so faster than the year before. Yeah, about 20 minutes faster, but I was the second female, so I didn't come first again. Then the following year, this is the last one. The following year in May 2024, I did a new event called the T42. I think that just stands for Trail 42, and that's in the Ruapehu region. So really mountainous. It's a trail marathon. I did that in 4 hours and 6 minutes. And I think I was the first female for that. I can't remember. But clearly there's a theme going on here. Like, I'm good at trail stuff. And this was all building up to do a 100K ultra, which was in October, but I got pregnant. In fact, I spent that whole winter training like a mofo because I wanted to win, clearly, because I kind of had this like winner's high. I wanted to win this 100K. I wanted to be the first female, but I kind of wanted to be first overall because women really excel in ultras and distance events. And 3 weeks before I was due to win this 100K ultra, I found out I was pregnant with little Rosie Bear. Let me know if you have done any of those events and how you found them.